The betrayal I didn't see coming. My name is Sophie Reynolds. I'm 29 years old, living in a small apartment in Boston. And for the past 6 years, I've been supporting my parents financially, $2,000 every month. I wasn't rich, far from it. I had a modest salary as a marketing analyst, a little savings, and big dreams. Dreams like owning a small house, having a space that felt truly mine, somewhere I could put down roots. And I trusted my parents, Jonathan and Elaine Reynolds, to safeguard part of that dream for me. They're putting it in a savings account for you, my dad would say with a reassuring smile. This is your future, Sophie. One day you'll thank us. Mom would nod, smoothing her hair as she added, it'll grow over time. You'll have the house you've always wanted. I believed them. I truly did. Every month, I handed over the money, neatly folded in envelopes, receipts signed and dated. It felt like a ritual, a mixture of trust, obligation, and hope. I recorded each transaction in a small notebook I kept tucked away. Over time, it became routine. I'd set aside my paycheck, count out the cash, and give it to them with a quiet smile. For 6 years, I did this without question. There were little signs, of course. Dad glancing at my bank app when I checked my account. Mom laughing too quickly when I mentioned houses. But I ignored them. I wanted to believe. I had to believe. Then 2 weeks ago, I decided it was finally time to look for my own home. I called Dad. I'm ready to start house hunting, I said, my voice full of excitement. Can you send me the account info? The line went silent. Then his laugh came. Cold, harsh. What money? That was rent. I froze. What do you mean? I whispered, feeling my chest tighten. That money never existed. It went to cover living expenses. Rent, that's it, he said. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just stood there, phone in hand, letting the words sink in. Mom's voice trembled behind him. Sweetheart, you know we only wanted what was best. Her words, meant to comfort, hit me like a slap. Years of trust, carefully given, had just been dismissed. I hung up. At my apartment, I retrieved a folder I had carefully hidden. Inside were 6 years of proof. Bank transfer confirmations, receipts, and signed envelopes, all $2,000 a month. Every cent accounted for. The next morning, I confronted them. I placed the folder on the kitchen table. Mom's face went pale. Where did you get that? She whispered. I met her eyes calmly. Where did I get the truth? I asked. Dad leaned forward, visibly flustered. You kept all this? Yes, I said, because I knew one day I would need it. And today, I do. The power dynamic shifted in that instant. For years, they had controlled me with lies and manipulation. But now I held the undeniable truth. I'm buying my house, I said, my voice steady. With my money. Not with your excuses, not with your promises. My money, my future. Mom didn't respond. She sat there, stunned. Dad's jaw tightened. For the first time, I realized they were just ordinary people. Flawed, scared, guilty. The control they wielded over me for years was gone. I leaned back, letting the silence settle. This wasn't revenge. This was reclamation. 6 years of giving, 6 years of trust, 6 years of hope, and now the beginning of my independence. And I knew, deep down, this was only the start of my story. The morning sunlight streamed through my small apartment window, catching the dust in golden streaks. It was quiet, too quiet for someone whose life had been dictated by the rhythm of other people's control for the past 6 years. I sipped my coffee, staring at the folder I had left on the kitchen table the night before. The evidence of every $2,000 I had given my parents. Every month meticulously documented, every cent accounted for. I had kept it hidden because I knew the moment I might need it would come, and that moment had arrived. At 29, I was tired of being deceived, tired of having my dreams postponed by people who should have supported me. Today, I would take my first real step toward independence, buying my own house. I spent the morning scanning listings online. Cozy brick houses, mid-century modern apartments, small townhouses. Each one seemed to whisper, "This could be yours, Safi. You earned it." By noon, I had shortlisted 3, each within my budget, each with potential, each a tangible symbol of a life built on my own terms. I called a real estate agent, explained my situation briefly, and scheduled viewings for the afternoon. The first house was a small, red-bricked row house on a quiet street. I walked through the rooms, imagining furniture and laughter filling the space. I imagined mornings sipping coffee on the tiny balcony, evenings curled up with a book in the living room. For the first time in years, it felt like mine. The second house was more modern, open concept, sunlight pouring in through floor-to-ceiling windows. I could see myself hosting dinner parties here, friends laughing around a table I'd set, the walls echoing with joy instead of whispered lies. The third was smaller, simpler, but charming. A tiny backyard, enough space for a small garden. I could almost smell the soil and imagine planting tulips, tomatoes, a little patch of life that belonged to me and no one else. I left the viewings and walked home, heart pounding. I had made my decision. I would buy the first house, the red-bricked row house. Solid, warm, a foundation in every sense of the word. That evening, I called my parents. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't plead. I didn't apologize for trusting them. "I'm buying a house," I said, my words steady. "With my money, the money I gave you over the past 6 years." There was a pause. Mom's voice trembled. "Safi, we didn't realize." Dad cut in, defensive, almost shouting. "You're making this about us again. It's not like that." I let the folder speak. I slid it across the table, the rustle of paper loud in the silence. Every receipt, every confirmation of money transferred, every month accounted for. Mom gasped. Where did you get that?" "I kept it," I said, "because I suspected this day might come. And now it has." Dad stared, mouth opening and closing like he couldn't find words. His usual smirk, the one he used to dismiss me for asking questions, was gone. I continued, calm, deliberate. "I'm not asking for permission. I'm not negotiating. This is my life, my money, my house. And I will not let you control it, manipulate it, or erase it anymore." Mom's hands shook. Dad leaned back, clearly unsettled. They were used to controlling me through guilt and deception, but I was no longer playing by their rules. Over the next week, I finalized the paperwork, signed the contracts, and wired the deposit. I walked through the empty house for the first time, breathing in the air, imagining all the nights I would spend there, safe, independent, free. It was more than a house. It was a statement. A declaration that I would no longer be a passive player in a game I never agreed to join. Every corner, every wall, every room reflected a life I had earned, not borrowed, not promised. I sent them a picture of the front door, a simple message: "Close the deal. This is mine." The replies were almost unreadable. Mom sent an ellipsis. Dad didn't respond at all. I didn't care. Their disapproval, their disbelief, their guilt, it was all irrelevant. For the first time in 6 years, I was unshackled. That night, as I sat on the empty floors of my new house, the first sound I noticed was the echo of my own laughter. Quiet, soft, but unmistakably mine. I thought back to the 6 years I had handed over money, trusting them, hoping for their honesty. And I realized something. Every dollar I gave, every hope I nurtured, had prepared me for this moment. I was no longer just a daughter who trusted blindly. I was Sophie Reynolds, a woman who had reclaimed her life, piece by piece, dollar by dollar, decision by decision. And now, armed with independence and the evidence of my foresight, I knew the next step would be even more significant. The confrontation had begun, but the story was far from over. The next morning, the air in my apartment felt heavier than usual. I had spent the night unpacking a few boxes in my new house, imagining it alive with light and warmth. But the thought of my parents' reactions kept gnawing at the edges of my mind. I hadn't heard from them directly since I sent the picture of the front door. Dad, predictable as ever, remained silent. Mom had sent a single text. I knew what it meant: shock, disbelief, maybe even guilt, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't need to be. I was 29. I was independent. And for the first time in 6 years, I was no longer living under their narrative. By noon, my phone rang. It was Mom. "Hello," I said, my voice calm, almost too calm. "Sophie, can we come over?" she asked, tentative, her voice a mixture of apology and fear. I paused. "You want to come here?" "Yes, we need to talk." I exhaled slowly. "Fine, but not to argue. Just talk." They arrived an hour later. Dad in his usual pressed shirt, Mom clutching her purse nervously. They looked smaller than usual. Vulnerable. Human. Mom's eyes darted to the folder on the table. She swallowed. "Sophie, I didn't think." "You didn't think what?" I asked. "That I'd actually keep track. That I'd find out the truth. That I'd act." Dad shifted uncomfortably. We just wanted to help you." "Help me?" I interrupted, calm but cutting. "By taking $2,000 a month for 6 years and calling it a savings account while it wasn't. That's your idea of help." Mom flinched. It was complicated." "Complicated?" I laughed quietly. "Do you know how it feels to give every month, trusting the people who raised you, only to realize it was all a lie?" Dad's eyes flicked to the folder. "Where did you?" "I told you," I said. "I kept it. Every transfer, every receipt, everything. And now I've bought my house with my own money. Money that you said didn't exist." Mom's face went pale. Her fingers trembled as she reached toward the folder, almost as if she wanted to hide it. Dad's jaw tightened. He opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. I realized they had no words left that would hold any power over me. For the first time, the dynamic between us was reversed. For years, I had been the obedient child, the one who handed over money, the one who lived according to their rules. Now, I was the one holding the truth, the power. "I'm not angry," I said softly. "Well, maybe a little, but mostly I'm disappointed. Not in you, but in what you thought you could do to me. I see now that love without honesty is not love at all." Mom's lips trembled. We never thought you'd notice." "I noticed," I said. "I noticed 6 years ago, actually. But I needed proof. And now I have it. And I also have my house, my independence, and my future. And you." Dad's hands clenched into fists at his sides. Mom swallowed hard, eyes downcast. We'll fix this." "Fix what?" I asked, leaning back. "The truth can't be fixed. It can only be acknowledged. And now you have no choice but to acknowledge it." Over the next few days, tension in the family escalated. My parents tried to manipulate, guilt, and even bargain with me. "We can transfer some of the money now," Dad said once, almost pleading. "No," I replied firm. "You cannot undo 6 years of lies. What's done is done." What matters now is honesty and maybe a fresh start if you can manage it. My younger cousin Clara heard about the situation and texted me, "Sophie, they're scared. It's incredible. They've never seen you like this." I smiled. It's not fear. It's just truth finally landing. Then came the first big twist. One evening, as I sorted through documents in my new house, I noticed something unusual. A set of bank transfers from years ago that weren't in the folder. My heart sank. They weren't just lying about the savings account. They had diverted some money for personal use, a sum significant enough to make my jaw drop. I called Dad immediately. "Jonathan, we need to talk about the missing funds." His response was cold, defensive. "I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled up the transactions, one by one, timestamps, account numbers, and notes all visible. His face paled. Mom appeared beside him, silent, eyes wide. "Explain this," I said, my voice steady, but my pulse racing. "You stole from me." That moment changed everything. Not just for the money, but for the relationship. Everything I had believed about family, loyalty, and trust was now fractured. I realized that sometimes people you love can also be your biggest betrayers. And it's not about punishment. It's about recognizing truth, setting boundaries, and protecting yourself. That night, I sat in my new house, the evidence laid out around me, the air quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. I realized something. My parents' deception had nearly cost me my dreams, but it hadn't. I had reclaimed them, one proof-filled envelope at a time. And yet, as the sun dipped below the Boston skyline, a new thought crept into my mind. If they had lied about this much, what else had they hidden? The story was far from over. The morning light hit the hardwood floors of my new house in golden streaks. I sipped my coffee, flipping through the last of the folders, proof, evidence, every bank transfer, every signed envelope, every receipt from the 6 years of rent I had faithfully handed to my parents. I was exhausted, mentally and emotionally, but a fire burned in me. Not anger, not revenge. Clarity, independence. I finally understood what freedom felt like when it wasn't just a word but a tangible, earned reality. I picked up my phone and called Dad first. "Jonathan," I said calmly, almost serenely, "we need to finalize this. Not the money, not apologies. I want acknowledgement, full acknowledgement of what happened." He cleared his throat. "Sophie, we've already—" "No," I interrupted. "We haven't. Not until you both admit, out loud, what you did with every dollar, every promise, every lie over the past 6 years. It's time." I heard the silence, long tense, then Mom's shaky voice. "Sophie, please." I held the folder up like a shield. "Please what? Please continue the lies. I've already proven everything. I've bought my house. I've secured my future. And now, I want honesty." Dad sighed, defeated, but his pride still warring with reality. You don't understand. We thought we were helping." I laughed softly, not cruelly, but with a calm, unwavering certainty. "Helping? By stealing from your own daughter? By lying for years? No, you weren't helping. You were controlling. And today, control ends." I spent the next few hours walking them through every single transaction, showing them exactly where they diverted funds, how much I had been given, what they had hidden, and every email, text, and receipt that confirmed my story. Mom's face went white with each revelation. Dad's hands trembled on the table. They tried to interrupt, plead, rationalize, but I didn't flinch. Every word, every gesture, every proof was mine. "You see," I said finally, leaning back, letting the weight of their betrayal fill the space. "This is not about money anymore. It's about trust. And you broke it. Every month. Every year. And now I am reclaiming it. Mom covered her face with her hands. Dad leaned back, jaw tight, eyes avoiding mine. For the first time in decades, they were powerless. The next step was visibility. I wasn't going to let this go quietly, not because I wanted revenge, but because honesty deserved to be recognized. I contacted a financial advisor I trusted. We mapped everything, prepared a comprehensive statement of the past 6 years, and set up a meeting where the truth could be acknowledged professionally. "Why are you doing this publicly?" Dad asked, incredulous. "Because I don't want another person to be deceived by your lies," I said. "Because I want my independence to be undeniable. Because I finally control my own story." I finalized my home's paperwork, got the keys, and set up utilities. Every step was deliberate, a quiet affirmation that this life belonged to me. I even invited a few close friends over, not for celebration, not for pity, but to share in the reality that I had created for myself. They were amazed. "Sophie, this is incredible," Clara said, eyes wide. "You stood up to them, and look at what you built, your own house, on your own terms." I smiled, letting their admiration fill the small kitchen. "It's just the beginning," I said. "I've taken the first step. The rest? Well, I'll walk that path myself." That evening, I sat on the balcony, the city lights twinkling like distant stars. I thought about all the moments I had spent blindly trusting them, all the money, all the hope, all the years. And I realized something profound. Independence wasn't just about money. It wasn't about winning. It was about truth, clarity, and finally being seen. I had exposed the lies. I had reclaimed my life. I had bought my house, my sanctuary, my freedom. And in that quiet, cinematic moment, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Complete control over my own destiny. Mom called later that night. She was quieter than usual. "Sophie, I don't know what to say." I answered calmly, "You don't have to say anything. You just have to let me live my life." Dad didn't call. He never did. And I understood something critical. It didn't matter. Their recognition, their validation, their love, conditional as it had always been, was no longer required. I was free. The next morning, I walked through my new house again. I stopped in the living room and touched the walls, imagining the life I would build here. A life with honesty. A life with independence. A life where no one could dictate my worth, my dreams, or my money. And I knew the story wasn't over. There would be fallout, there would be arguments, maybe even attempts to reclaim control. But I also knew this. I had the evidence, the house, the clarity, and the strength to stand firm. This wasn't just a house. This wasn't just money. This was my story, my life. And no one, not even my parents, could rewrite it anymore. The twist nobody saw coming. The city outside my new house hummed with life, oblivious to the personal revolution that had taken place within its walls. I had spent the past few weeks settling in, unpacking boxes, decorating, and slowly creating a life that was entirely mine. No one dictated the rules. No one controlled the narrative. No one lied to me anymore. And yet, a lingering tension remained. I had thought the confrontation with my parents, the exposure of their deception, and the purchase of my house would close the chapter neatly. I was wrong. Because life has a way of introducing twists precisely when you feel safe. It began with a letter in my mailbox, not an email, not a text. A physical envelope, crisp and formal. The return address was unfamiliar. Curious, I opened it. Inside was a statement from the bank, a formal document outlining accounts I didn't even know existed. My parents had secretly set up investments in my name, supposedly for my future, But there was a catch. Conditions tied to me following certain instructions, attending certain family events, even acting in ways that compromised my independence. I sat at my kitchen table, my heart pounding. For 6 years, they had taken money, lied, manipulated. And now, even in their absence, they had tried to maintain control through hidden financial strings. A mix of anger, disbelief, and grim amusement swept over me. I knew what I had to do. Not react impulsively, not seek revenge, but neutralize their leverage. I called my lawyer, explaining everything. Bank statements, hidden accounts, manipulation. Every document, every piece of proof I had collected over the past 6 years was submitted. "You're doing the right thing," the lawyer said. "Legally, you're fully protected. They won't be able to access a dime without your consent." I hung up, feeling a strange sense of calm. The battle was over on paper, but I realized the real fight wasn't legal, it was emotional. 2 days later, I received a visit. It wasn't my parents. It was Clara, my cousin. She had a look of urgency in her eyes. "Sophie," she said, breathless, "you need to see this." She handed me her phone, a private social media account, anonymously posting pictures and messages. My parents had been publicly boasting about helping me while subtly blaming me for family tensions. The posts were manipulative, designed to shame me, twist perception, and garner sympathy. I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. Not bitterly, not cruelly, but with clarity. "They really never learn," I murmured. The next step was unexpected. I decided to reclaim the narrative. I documented my story, step by step, 6 years of hard work, the betrayal, the evidence, the confrontation, the house, and finally, my independence. I shared it publicly on a blog, anonymously at first, then gradually with my real name. Responses poured in, messages from people who had experienced similar betrayals, from those inspired by my resilience, from strangers who were encouraged to confront their own lives with honesty. My story became more than just mine. It became a movement of truth, transparency, and empowerment. And then came the final twist, one that even I hadn't expected. A real estate developer who had read my blog contacted me with an offer. "Sophie," he said, "you have an incredible story, and your resilience speaks volumes. We'd like to feature you in a national campaign for financial independence and female empowerment." The realization hit me slowly. All the pain, all the betrayal, all the struggle, it had led me here. To a life where my choices, my evidence, my independence could not only protect me, but inspire others. I smiled, thinking of the 6 years of giving, of trust betrayed, of cold laughs and whispered excuses. Every step of the way had prepared me for this moment. Weeks passed. I settled fully into my new house, hosted friends, and even held a small gathering where I shared my story in person. My parents tried, subtly, to re-enter my life, offering apologies, gifts, and explanations. I listened, politely, calmly, but I didn't let them regain influence. "You can apologize," I said once, quietly but firmly, "but you can't rewrite what you did, and I won't let you." And they understood, at last. Sitting on my balcony one evening, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars, I reflected on the journey. The betrayal, the confrontation, the house, the independence, the public acknowledgement, all of it had been painful, but necessary. I realized something profound. Life would always throw unexpected twists, hidden manipulations, and betrayals. But the real power lies in recognizing truth, reclaiming control, and building something tangible from your resilience. I looked at the folder, now neatly stored, the documents of 6 years of trials and trust. Then I looked at the city, the vast possibilities, the life I had created. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Free to live, free to dream, free to build, free to choose. The twist nobody saw coming wasn't just the exposure of my parents' deceit. It was my emergence as a woman fully in control of her destiny, turning betrayal into empowerment and independence into triumph. Sophie Reynolds, 29, had always been diligent, responsible, and trusting. For 6 years, she faithfully gave her parents $2,000 every month, believing it was going into a savings account for her future home. When she discovered that the money was spent as rent and never saved, the betrayal struck her like a physical blow. Yet instead of reacting with immediate anger, Sophie quietly processed the shock, holding on to the evidence she had been carefully collecting all those years. From my perspective, this moment is crucial. It teaches that betrayal doesn't have to break a person if one is prepared and observant. I personally feel that many people would crumble under this revelation, but Sophie's calm shows the power of foresight and emotional control. The story immediately establishes a human relatable conflict, trust broken by those closest to us, and the first step toward reclaiming autonomy. Determined to take control of her life, Sophie sets out to buy her own house, seeing it as both a literal and symbolic reclaiming of independence. She visits multiple properties, imagining her future life in each, and chooses a red-bricked row house that embodies stability, warmth, and freedom. When she confronts her parents with the evidence, she remains composed, allowing the truth itself to hold authority. In my opinion, this part exemplifies self-reliance and empowerment. It's inspiring because it demonstrates that taking deliberate action, even after betrayal, is the only way to regain agency. Sophie's actions here reinforce the message that independence is built through strategy and courage, not anger or passive hope. Her parents' reaction is the next turning point. Shocked, defensive, and guilt-ridden, they attempt to manipulate and plead, but Sophie stands firm. The emotional weight of this confrontation is cinematic. She transitions from powerless daughter to a woman who can dictate the terms of her life. The story here highlights that empowerment is not just about reclaiming financial control, but also about reclaiming emotional space. From my perspective, this resonates because it shows that boundaries with family, especially when trust is violated, are essential for long-term self-respect. Sophie doesn't just win a confrontation, she demonstrates the importance of clarity and calm authority. The twist deepens when Sophie uncovers hidden bank accounts and further manipulations by her parents. This revelation shocks her, but also reinforces her resilience. She contacts a lawyer, secures legal protection, and begins documenting her journey publicly. Here, my commentary is that Sophie's response reflects strategic thinking under pressure. Rather than seeking revenge, she channels her energy into protection and empowerment. Personally, I see this as a crucial lesson. Exposure and truth can be tools not just for justice, but also for inspiration. Sophie's story becomes more than personal vindication. It becomes a model for others facing similar betrayals. Finally, Sophie's independence reaches a new height when her story gains attention, and she receives opportunities that validate her resilience. A national campaign offers her a platform, proving that adversity can lead to unforeseen opportunities. The emotional climax is profound. Sophie sits in her new house, reflecting on the journey, realizing that freedom, control, and self-respect are her true achievements. From my viewpoint, the ultimate takeaway is that personal empowerment comes from reclaiming one's narrative. Sophie turns betrayal into a force for growth, proving that resilience and self-belief can transform pain into triumph. In conclusion, the entire 5-part arc, from betrayal, realization, confrontation, exposure, to triumph, paints a deeply human, cinematic story. In my opinion, the story teaches multiple lessons. Trust carefully, document diligently, act decisively, and never let betrayal define your worth. Safi's journey is not just a tale of revenge or financial reclamation. It is a narrative about self-discovery, autonomy, and the power of standing firm in truth. Thanks for watching.